Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. And we have an exciting show in store for you. We're going to be talking with Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard coming up in just a little bit. I have him a little bit later on in the program this morning, towards the end. So just keep that in mind. So it's never too late to reach out if you have any questions for him or just about the show in general. But boy, do we have a lot to cover this morning. Feels like one of those shows that's definitely going to go quick. So let's get right to it, shall we? I'm not even going to make a comment. I'm not going to tell my opinion on this, but it's a story that we brought up the last few days quickly, and I received a lot of comments on it. So I thought it was only fair to show you. Senator John Fetterman presided over the Senate wearing what you see there. Short sleeve shirt, no tie, and shorts. When a reporter caught up to him, again, not just in the Senate chambers, he was presiding officer of the Senate. And when a reporter caught up to him after his session ended, he said, "The world didn't spin off its axis. You know, I just did it. I think we will still go on." That's what he told an NBC reporter. Whatever your thoughts are, kind of in that same vein, we've talked, and someone made the comparison, I can't remember who it was at the New York Post, that it's just a continued degradation of like tradition and history. I'm not sure if you believe that, if you think it's overhyped. Some are saying this is the problem with politics, that we're even talking about this, right? But then you get into this survey, and I don't even like mentioning these things because we started the program off, 7 months ago, talking about the lack of faith in community and patriotism and faith in general. And then you read surveys like this, and it's coming from Annenberg Public Policy Center of the University of Pennsylvania. And the poll is troubling for numerous reasons. But without getting too wonky into the numbers, let me give you a few specifics. 2/3 of Americans, 66%, can name the three branches of government. 66%. 10% can only list two. Another 7% can only name one. An astounding 17% cannot name a single branch of government. Meanwhile, when respondents were asked to name all the rights guaranteed by the First Amendment to the Constitution, most Americans, 77%, could only name one, and that's the freedom of speech. Kathleen Hall Jamieson, the director of this study, said it is worrisome that 1 in 6 U.S. adults cannot name any of the branches of government, and that only 1 in 20 people can name all 5 freedoms protected by the First Amendment. In total, just 5% of U.S. adults could correctly cite all 5 First Amendment rights, and 30% named 3 or 4. Just under half, 46%, named 1 or 2 First Amendment rights, and sadly 20% could not name a single right. What is kind of interesting is that over 1 in 5 Americans, 22%, responded by listing essentially the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. It ties into a larger picture of what we are dealing with as a country. You could say maybe the education system as well. I'd love to hear your opinion on it. Weigh in. We do have to take a short break. I'm going to kind of front load on breaks early on in the program because I want to have as much time as possible with Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard. So stay with us even. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. And we are back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and you're watching WYDC TV Big Fox. So, a couple of quick things to run through because we have so much to get to. First of all, the judge says Hunter Biden does have to appear in person for the arraignment on the gun charges. A federal magistrate judge has denied Hunter Biden's request to appear virtually for his first court hearing in the federal gun case against him and set his arraignment for October the 3rd. I also found it interesting. I believe it was Fox News that reported it. I didn't print it off this morning. That there is a mugshot out there, but they will not release it, which is interesting because, and the reason I say it is because there's so much talk about would Trump have a mugshot, et cetera. So just I don't have any comment to make about it. I think it was Jesse Waters that's putting forth the Freedom of Information Act request looking for that mugshot. Just for whatever that's worth, I thought it was interesting. So we've had the last few days, actually last few weeks, almost the whole month of September, has been pretty bad for our president, Joe Biden. Whether it's Hunter, whether it's the articles that Ignatius coming out and saying he should step aside, even though Ignatius is was, I guess, a big supporter of Biden, and even wrote it, as the one article said, like someone sitting down their parents and saying you can't drive anymore, taking away the keys. It was written in that way that we love you, Mr. President, but it's time to step aside. Well, then you see others pile on a little bit. And as I said, I find it a little interesting. The media is having trouble completely going all in because they realize Joe can decide to run because he's the incumbent. It's up to him. So they don't want to put too much bad information out there and then have to pull it back when it gets near election time. So what is Biden's team saying about it? Well, according to Axios, they're telling nervous Democrats, just chill. Haven't heard that in a long time. The Biden White House has a blunt message for the Democrats that are nervous, that are scared about his reelection chances and fretting about his age and the bad poll numbers. Clam up and chill out. Mike Donilon, a senior White House advisor, is telling anxious Democrats that two issues, abortion and Donald Trump, will propel Biden to re-election, according to people familiar with the matter. But in private conversations, Democrats have been struck by top White House aides' confidence, some calling it hubris. That's it. Yeah, they're just saying relax. Everything's going to be okay. But then you see the poll that came out yesterday, the latest YouGov Yahoo News poll, that found that Biden and Trump are now tied at 44% among registered voters. Now, we've had some back and forth, but the polls have always shown it close. And this, as far as I can tell, there's two things that play into this poll that could really change it. One would be if the former, there's the sheriff, if the former president is indicted. But the other that does not take into account is that Cornel West is still involved, and that is not a part of this poll. So tied at 44%. Let's take a short break. We will be right back with our guest after this. Stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is the M.A. Neal Financial Services section of our program, and joining us in studio is Sheriff Jim Allard. Good morning.
Good morning, Frank. It's a beautiful day in Steuben County.
It always is, though, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
In its own way. So, so we have so much to talk about. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, we were talking a little bit off the air. I was at the fair. How much fun did you guys have at the fair?
A lot of fun.
Yeah.
That's always a good time.
Yeah, so I signed up for the Republican booth, and I gave Joe Sempolinski a little heat over this because he let me sign up at the exact time where I missed the pig races. I didn't get to see a single pig race.
That is one of the big draws of the fair is the pig races. People love that.
I think I've talked about the pig races more on the show than maybe
in
the history of media.
Because I think they're going to try and make me race.
Oh, no.
And I don't want that.
No, it was great to see you guys there, though, because I walked around. What a fun time. But enough about that. We were talking off there. I love the fact that you sent out the newsletter. Is the newsletter for everyone, or is it just the media?
I sent it out to all of our media contacts, and then I posted it on our Facebook page, and it's on the sheriff's app and the sheriff's website.
Okay, so people have no excuse.
Yes,
they can find it.
Yes. Usually it reaches around 15,000 people.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
I love the newsletter because it does fill you in on the month that was. You had a busy August. How's September?
Just as busy.
Yeah.
It's we have a couple of things going on at the same time. All of our law enforcement partners are like we are. They're down in people. Yeah. So everybody has to work together on almost every call that's out there. So every agency is seeing more activity,
sure,
including us. In the upside of that is our folks are working together the best they ever have.
I'm sure. Out of necessity, though, unfortunately.
Yes, it is.
And I do want to talk about that retention and recruitment, as we always do. But I don't want to give too much of the newsletter away. But September has been good for the office?
it's been busy.
Okay. Hey, I want to say that because I get the media releases, obviously.
Yep.
Does it seem like there's more releases of people being, with their mugshots and stuff? I don't remember ever receiving this many.
Well, we've always done mugshots.
Right.
The state police by law can't do mugshots.
Okay.
So any local agency can do mugshots, and obviously we always do.
Right. Well, it's just surprising because it seems like when I get them, there's 3 or 4 a day anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it lightly, but
Yeah.
it goes to show how busy you are.
It is. It's busy, and our guys and gals are doing such a phenomenal job out there.
Yeah.
I say this all the time, but I'm just honored and humbled to be part of that team.
Yeah.
The good work that they're doing. When you look at, things. Even our evidence team. I think last year we had close to 16 burglaries solved just due to DNA collection.
Wow. That's
I mean,
amazing.
10 years ago, that didn't happen.
Well, no.
So it's amazing the good work that they're doing.
Well, it's also impressive going back to the newsletter. It's not just about the arrests that you see, but all the work that you do behind the scenes for what's the term? Accreditation, maybe? Or,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
What's currently going on?
So our jail is accredited by the state.
Okay.
Our court security is accredited by the state. Our civil division is accredited by the state. The only portion that hasn't been accredited is the law enforcement component,
Okay.
and which is the road patrol. And Under Sheriff McNellis has been doing a hero's job of getting that together, because you have to redo every policy according to standard. It's 106 standards, I believe.
Wow.
So he's getting that together. By the end of the year, I expect that to be done, and we'll get a mock assessment, and then we'll get a full assessment, and then for the first time in the history of the sheriff's office, we'll be fully accredited across the board.
Well, that's amazing, but wow, that sounds like a lot of work.
It is a heavy lift.
Well, and that's, you talk about understaffing. I am amazed at how much you are doing behind the scenes on top of what you would consider your normal job in the office. That's what's so impressive. How do you find the time? Not just you. I mean, the whole office.
Yeah. All of our folks wear many hats.
Yeah.
And they're an amazing group of folks that buy into the fact that we're public servants and are willing to go that extra mile to do what they're doing. And I appreciate them. I know the public appreciates them, and they know that too.
Well, we're going to take a short break, and then we've got a lot more to cover. I know people keep asking about the pistol permit process, so be prepared here. Okay. So we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We've got a lot more questions, but first, because we had your counterpart, Sheriff Schramm, on just the other day, and there's the Unity in the Community Rally, and I saw your name is involved with this. It's a Support the Police rally. It's at Wisner Park on October 7th, 1 to 2 p.m. Is this the first time you've done one of these? Or?
We did a Unity in the Community here in Centerway Square.
That's right.
Earlier this year, and Sheriff Schramm reached out and asked if I would come to that one and show some partnership with him.
Of course.
I'm more than happy to help out Sheriff Schramm any way I can.
And I think they're nice events.
They are.
I mean,
they are.
Especially at a time when we talked about it so often, when the media and pop culture is so down on law enforcement. It's so discouraging. Something like this to support the police, that's why I want everybody to come out, to show your support. We got a message that I'm going to get to later where people are just so outraged that it's just constant bad-mouthing of police.
It is, and it's all levels of government, it seems, that are involved in that. And what that does is affects our ability to recruit and our ability to retain in law enforcement. So it's an important issue, and I hope that folks do come out. But we've got to get past this demonizing of our police officers, because they're out there putting their lives on the line every day.
And what's morale like in the office when, like you said, it's politicians, it's pop culture, it's media? It has been a major issue with retention?
It does. Yeah. It does affect. I had one deputy he was a 12-year deputy, and he said, you know what, I'm out, I'm moving to Florida.
Yeah.
I'm done. I had another one that we were getting ready to hire, and he said, nope, I'm leaving this state, I'm going to Tennessee.
Yeah.
And we see that more and more often, and we see that in the number of people that sign up to take the test to become a deputy.
Of course.
When I first started at Corning PD, I think there was almost 100 people that took the test. This last list we got from Civil Service was 7 people.
Wow. So so I mean,
Yeah.
it's almost like there's no light at the end of the tunnel.
No, not in the near future.
So think about that. So you're understaffed, so everybody's working harder, like we talked about. You've got the bad perception in the media, and then you have bail reform.
yeah.
So
on
you
top of
have
that.
so you're dealing with some of the same people over and over and over, and then it seems like every time Albany's in session, you guys just got to be a nervous wreck.
Well, you're waiting to see what's coming
Yeah.
down next.
Yeah.
Yeah. What
It's never
great
good.
what great idea is coming next? Yeah.
And I think we talked about this last time, but it amazes me that with every poll shows that public safety is such a major issue for the
Yes.
residents of New York.
Yep.
And yet Governor Hochul says we've got to do something about this for the political aspect of it, because we lost the House because we didn't do enough on public safety. So it's not about protecting the citizens.
No.
It's about
No.
winning seats.
Well, and again, I feel like it's what's the least we can do.
Yeah. The very least.
Yeah.
And then go
Without-
out and do a big press conference.
And the overall effect again too is and I talked to my the collaborators that I have in the Sheriff's Association, and we're seeing a lowering in quality
Oh,
in
yeah.
standards
Yeah.
and across the board in every agency.
Mhm.
So what all of this has done is made fewer candidates,
Mhm.
makes it so that we're hiring probably at a lower level than we ever have before in some cases.
Mhm.
And we've got 4 vacancies on the road right now at the sheriff's office,
Right.
and I'm not willing to lower our standards
No.
to hire.
No.
So we'll wait until that good candidate comes, but
But
makes
that's
it more
scary to think.
difficult on everyone.
And that's scary to think you're taking the stand, but what about the places that are willing to lower their standards?
Right.
That causes whole new problems.
Yes,
You know?
and that's the net result of all the police reform is
Yeah.
that they've worsened the industry.
So how do you recruit?
So we recruit. I always say our deputies are our biggest recruiters. They go out and they display what we do, and they talk to other folks about how we do it,
Sure.
and that's how most of our recruitment occurs. And people come and say, "Hey, I want to come here,"
Yeah.
and then we say, "Well, if you fit
Yeah.
and
I
you
know.
can pass the background, then we'd love to have you."
Well, I feel bad about it, but it was the same with Sheriff Schramm. I feel like I make part of our interviews like a job fair because,
Yeah.
I feel so bad for everybody, and going to corrections officers as well.
Oh,
I mean,
that's
how
even worse. Yeah.
Yeah, it's even worse. And I mean, you're working all those hours, and you think about the safety factor of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one thing we've seen, and we've talked about
Yeah.
the HALT Act. Our inmate assaults have skyrocketed
Yeah.
because there's no consequence to it other than in the legal system.
Yeah.
So it's a much more dangerous, and the fact that the folks that are in jail are the most dangerous of the most dangerous,
Right.
rather than what we used to have.
And and that just sparked my memory because I saw an article the other day in the New York Post about young people being involved in so many crimes now. We talk
Yeah.
about all these horrible laws, but I'm sure we've seen it in our area. But going back to the HALT Act, similar idea. These kids know there's no punishment.
Correct.
They're out robbing bars in New York City like Charles Dickens or whatever. You know, they're just going around and pickpocketing. It said. I didn't even know that.
Pickpocketing is huge
Yeah.
in New York City right now.
Yeah. And they said one of the restaurant owners or bar owners came up to one of the kids and said, you're destroying my business. I'm going to call the cops. And then he goes, cops can't do anything.
Yeah. They're
So-
gonna arraign the release.
Yeah. So either the kids do it on their own, or I'm sure they're being recruited by gangs.
Right. Yeah.
How does this stuff not just get to you? It's getting to me. you're being so calm and collected. I'm trying to get you worked up. But but when you think about that, though, it does really get discouraging watching
does.
out of Albany
Yes.
all these laws, and you think, what? I know I've asked you this before, but what is the end game?
Right. Where do they stop?
Yeah.
And
what's the point?
I think the only place they stop is when people finally get tired of all this nonsense
Yeah.
and take it to the polls.
Yeah. Yep.
And get some folks back into our state government that care about public safety. again.
Exactly. And did you see that article? I think it was out of Minnesota. The councilwoman or something that had been calling to fund the police. The police over, and then she got carjacked and got beat up, and then all of a sudden she
likes the police.
Yeah. She'll probably be at the rally.
And that's been our experience across the board is the folks that are in the neighborhoods with the most violent crime, they want the police there.
Yeah.
And they don't want it defunded. It's the politicians, certain politicians that are looking to build or are criminals themselves. They don't want the police around.
We could name names. But I know we talked about this way back when bail reform was coming out. when I was on radio, and we said the sad thing is it's not, people aren't going to be aware until it affects them. And in
Correct.
New York, unfortunately, even in our rural type area, it's affecting us.
Yes, and if you recall when we had all the press conferences
Yes.
before bail reform, what did we say? It's going to drive crime up. It's going to drive recidivism up.
Yeah.
It's going to make you less safe in your home.
Yeah. And sorry, but
Holy
it
cow,
happened.
the experts knew what they were talking about.
Exactly. But I guess on top of that, so we knew how bad bail reform would be, but they just don't stop there.
No, they continue to double down.
Yeah. Do you think there'll be a change? It has to be with the voters.
That's where it's got to come from.
Yeah. Because
That's
you know
what
it's not going
drives
to come
it.
from Albany.
Well, then that's what drives the vote in Albany
Yeah.
too.
Right.
Um,
And that's
you
why
know.
Lee Zeldin did so well.
Yes.
And that's what scares Hochul. Because
Yes.
Hochul does not look very good when it comes to polling right now.
No.
But anyway, I didn't want to get on that. Okay, we got to take another short break. We'll be right back. And frankly speaking, here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, stay with us. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and this is the M.A. Neal Financial Services section of our program. We've been a little doom and gloom here, and we've been a little negative, but I know every year this is very special in Irwin at the 9/11 ceremony, and I know you attend each year. How did it go?
Went very well. The first responder of the year went to Deputy Brandon Owen of the Sheriff's Office. Deputy Owen is our paramedic. He again, we talk about multiple hats.
Exactly.
He's in charge of our EMT program, and he went the extra step to actually, which is no small feat, to gain his paramedic certification through New York State, and is out there operating. When he works, he handles over 50% of the EMS calls that come our way, and he's had multiple saves. He just does a phenomenal job, and he's a very unassuming young man.
Yeah.
And it was nice that we didn't nominate him. MSTAR nominated him.
Oh, that's great.
And he was given that award. But the ceremony was very nice. Don Crest's son Tom was there, standing in, and it was good to see
That's
him
nice.
there. And it was a very nice job. They told a story at the beginning of it that two eagles went over the park as they were setting up.
Oh, isn't that amazing?
And of course, Ernie Danforth decided that was Father Lou Brown.
Of course.
And Don Crest checking in on us. But it's always it's an uplifting ceremony, but it's also a somber ceremony.
It is, and I don't know if it played this year because I missed it, but every year, like last year, I think it was, where the person who was going to play taps couldn't make it. I said, "Thank heavens," because that's the toughest part.
It is
at that ceremony.
And he was there this year. He played taps, and
that makes it difficult.
It was good, yeah.
It's such a moving, like you said, it's such a moving ceremony every year. And I would recommend if people didn't go to the ceremony, but I just go over to the park.
Yes.
What a great park.
It is.
And you can see right off the road.
The statue of the firefighter is amazing.
Yeah, that was a great ceremony that year. So we've got a lot more to talk about. We'll move on from that. We've had quite a few candidates on the program and just local elected leaders. And one thing that keeps coming up in my emails and text messages is the homelessness problem. Are you guys seeing a big issue with that in law enforcement? Yeah.
We are, and it's across the county. It's not just any one place. Some of the laws changed over the last few years where DSS has to provide shelter to certain folks.
Right.
So that, I think, drives up the numbers a little bit. But if you look at a lot of our motels that were struggling are now filled with homeless folks that are being sheltered there through DSS and others. And we never used to see that many homeless in this area because it gets cold.
Right.
And most of them would head south. And,
Sure.
And now they're here and they're staying here. And I know it's an issue for a lot of neighborhoods.
Yeah, and I've noticed that, like you said, just here on Market Street, for instance, places where you wouldn't normally see, in the summer, like you said you would, and now you're seeing it more and more, and just in pretty much any little area you go to now. But you think of all those hotels, it's unfortunate for everyone involved because I would think it'd be an uptick in crime with that as well.
Well, there's always predators that will prey on the most vulnerable.
Of course.
And those folks are typically quite vulnerable. And the predators are out there and they go where they can get the most
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to talk about, obviously, something we bring up every time. It's so discouraging, but opioid epidemic and just the drug crisis. I know that you're working so hard behind the scenes. We talk about every time to get treatment. How is that going? Is that something that you're seeing some encouragement?
We are. We are. So in the jail, we have the medically assisted treatment program.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have about 30 folks on it right now.
Wow.
And we have a whole transition team that meets when they leave
Yeah.
to make sure that we can get them into a halfway house or somewhere to continue their treatment
Sure.
and not get back into it. It's a daily struggle. Anybody who's been through a substance use disorder knows that it takes a group to get you through it, and it's every day is a new challenge.
Yeah.
And but we do see we see less of a stigmatism associated with it,
Yeah.
or stigma associated with it, and we also see more folks taking advantage of the treatment opportunities out there. So it's good to see. I talked with the other.
Sorry. How unprofessional of me. I've only been in media 20 years, and I decide now's the time
Usually
not to
it's
turn
me.
off my ringer. I know. Okay.
I was on Liberty Street. I go out and walk in Bath quite a bit during my lunch hour. And I saw a guy that I've arrested multiple times when I was here in Corning. I've known him over the years.
Like old Holmes Day.
Well, and he was in a rough
Yeah.
way, and I stopped and I chatted with him, and he had gotten into heroin, he said,
Oh,
and but the jail he just got out of the jail, he was off heroin. He said, I'm in treatment, I'm staying in
That's
treatment, and it was very encouraging because this guy's got to be almost 50, and
wow.
he's been in and out of state prison
Yeah.
and local jails his whole life, and he remembered me, of course,
Yeah.
and it was good to see him in recovery.
That is. It's wonderful because that's going back to Battlefront. I'm not going to talk about this all day. But when these people get right back on the street, they're not getting the help that they need.
No, there's no break.
You're right.
There's no detox.
No.
So it's right back.
Yeah. And where are they going to go as soon as they get let out hours later?
Well, and then when they finally do,
If hours.
when there is a warrant due to grand jury indictments, and they come in, their health is so terrible.
Yeah.
By that time, they're 10 times more expensive for us to
Oh,
house
sure.
also.
Sure.
So
Well, it's great that you're doing the work, though, because that's really the only way to get better. And I think, to your point, we talked about with other issues as well, but the stigma, forget the stigma.
yeah,
Get the help.
get the help, get the treatment.
Have you, I know we talked about it seems like every time we're on the show there's some new drug that I've never heard about, but let's call it fentanyl. It's still a major issue in our area.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, fentanyl is, and then trank, xylazine, I believe is the
Yeah.
correct one. I always butcher that one. But that's also in the area now too, and that does not respond to Narcan. So it's we're seeing an uptick in fatal overdoses. We just had a 30-year-old overdose up in Caton just the other day that we investigated, a mother of two.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
And the Narcan has been such a lifesaver.
It has.
So to come up with a new drug,
Yeah.
it's like, what are you doing? I mean, we could talk about that forever, but
Yeah.
now Narcan is pretty prevalent in our area. Like people
Yes,
can
it's
get
free.
it, right?
They can
Okay,
get it free
that's
through Oasis. Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
And do you have to take a class to have?
So at the jail, when folks are in our program,
Yeah.
they leave with Narcan.
Okay.
That's provided by the state for free, and most recovery places, I know Brandon Buter, who's with Public Health,
Yeah.
does the
Yeah, he was on the program.
he does
Great
the
guy.
classes and
Yeah.
gets them out, and again, he's another success story.
Yes.
Brandon was in our jail
Yeah.
because of heroin, got himself in recovery, put himself through a college for peer recovery,
Yeah.
and now he's out there saving lives.
Isn't that amazing?
It really is.
It was an inspirational story, and that's why I was so glad to have him on the program, because you think of a story like that, that's what you hope for, right?
Yeah.
And just to promote him a little bit more or brag him up, that not just heal yourself, but to say I want to heal others.
Yes, and you see that a lot with folks
Yeah.
in recovery.
Yeah.
Is they realize what it did to their lives,
Right.
and they want to help others,
Mhm.
and they want to help others get into a healthier place.
Yeah.
And they're the most effective because they can talk the talk.
Right.
They've
Yeah.
been there.
Yeah, they can, exactly. So we got a lot more to ask when we come back. Let's take another short break. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is the Hesselson Studio and the M.A. Neal Financial Services section of our program because we're being joined by Sheriff Allard. We got so much to talk about. People want me to ask you about pistol permits. We'll get to that in a moment, but we were talking off the air. Tell me about the Community Impact Panel because this is another way that you're contributing to help people with these types of addictions.
Sure. A few years ago, myself and the District Attorney Baker and Julie Har from Steuben County Alcohol and Substance Abuse, we put together a program for first-time drug offenders as part of their sentence or plea and their conviction, where they come to, it's called the Community Impact Panel. It's about an hour and a half, 2-hour session where the DA talks about people he's known in his life that are in substance use disorder and how it's gone bad and how it's gone well. And I talk about the consequences I've seen in my career, unintended consequences to families and communities due to a substance use disorder. And then Julie Hart talks about the actual genetics of addiction. And she talks about how certain folks are predisposed to addiction due to their genetics, and they always will be, and it's a lifelong struggle. And then she lays out all of the abilities for treatment in the county. And you're not alone, and she shares that she's a recovering addict. And it's amazing to see the transformation from when people walk in like this and when they leave they're sharing and they're involved and engaged, and I think every time we do that, if we get a few folks into recovery, it's well worth the time.
Yes. What a great idea. That's wonderful. We've got a lot more to talk about. So let's move on here. So let's talk about the pistol permit process. What a mess. Notice I saved it towards the end of the show.
And it seems to go from county to county too, because I talked to other sheriffs in the region, and like here in Steuben County, our permits are housed in the county clerk's office.
Right.
Some sheriff's offices, they're housed in the sheriff's office. Chemung's one of those. Yates is one of those.
Right.
So not only is the change with the 3-year recertification from 5-year a deal, but also now that all NICS checks, background checks, have to go through the state police, there's varying responses that the counties are getting across the state on how that's going to look, what that's going to look like, what they have to do, what they can do, what they can't do, what they need to do.
Well, so far sounds like a disaster.
Well,
I don't know
I
if
think
you
it's
saw
along
that.
the same pattern as the cannabis reform laws.
We're going to talk about that in a moment.
Yeah.
But I saw that piece by Will Barclay, the minority leader, and this has been. There's no one that thought this was going to work on day one.
No.
I mean, would anybody have bet that would work on day one? No.
No.
And I know it's with the state police, but I'm sure you get questions about it all the time.
We do.
The cost alone. I mean, right before hunting season. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
I mean, it couldn't have been an accident.
Right. Well, again, there's a cost to buying.
Yeah.
There's a state surcharge now every time you buy ammunition.
Yeah.
And it's right before deer season begins.
Yes. Perfect timing. But I went to the Scope barbecue, and hearing them talk about it, it really is a mess. And I do think there's an argument to be made that it's unconstitutional because they are denying you your rights if that website doesn't work or whatever. So, and they said that people that are completely squeaky clean have no record and they're being denied.
Yeah, because the system is not ready for the load.
Right.
Yep.
Of course. Like you said with cannabis. We're going to talk about that in a second. But with the pistol permit process, for those thinking about starting that process, where should they begin in Steuben County?
So, again, you start at the clerk's office, at the Steuben County clerk. That's where you get your application. You have to take the 16-hour course now.
Even if you have your hunting safety course, right?
Correct. Yeah. If you want, if you're going for a concealed carry permit, you have to take the 16-hour. And there's the county clerk has a variety of vendors that do that. We team up with the NRA, and we do the first 8 for free, and then you do the second 8 for a reduced price with the NRA. And we've been doing that since it started.
Good.
Where I kind of like the aspect of teaming with community members to do that. And once you have your 16-hour course, then it's the same fingerprint background, all of that, and your 4 references and your questionnaires and all of that. Same as it used to be.
Yeah.
Except you have to provide your social media. You have to provide where you have social media and what you're called on it.
Yeah.
So that's a new twist to it. And then once again, all that goes back to the clerk's office, then to the judge, who are the issuing authority, then back to the clerk's office, and then
Yeah.
you get your letter.
So after a long day at work, do you go home and you're just liking people's Facebook pages? Is that how that works?
No, I try to stay off social
Okay,
media as
all right.
much as I can.
That's unbelievable. So we won't go into the whole right to bear arms and how
Yeah.
that sounds a little bit iffy. But with the 16-hour course, what is that, over a weekend? Or is
Typically,
it a couple,
so you can do it a number of ways. There's some that offer it evenings, 4 evenings.
Okay.
There's some that it's up to the individual vendor.
Okay.
We do the 8-hour on a Saturday,
Mm-hmm.
and then I think the NRA typically does theirs on a Saturday too.
Okay.
And that's worked out well. And it's not just the NRA. We partner with some of the other vendors too.
Okay.
So
How long from beginning to end, if you were the best you could be at this, do you think it would take?
probably 3 months.
Yeah, I was going to say
3 month
that, and even that
turnaround.
seems not bad.
And it's not. A lot of times the holdup is when you do your digital fingerprints,
Mm-hmm.
the state runs that through the Office of Mental Hygiene also,
Okay.
and they check your criminal history, and then that comes back to the clerk's office. Then we get notified, and we do our investigation. So
I'm impressed that it's
Yeah.
only 3 months with that much bureaucracy for
it is
lack of a better
on
word.
our end. It all depends on our end on staffing,
Sure.
obviously.
Right.
But we had a deputy that was on light duty
Mm-hmm.
for like 6 months, and that's all that person did was pistol permits.
Well, that's good.
Did a fantastic
Yeah.
job. I think he did 800 and some pistol permits in
Wow.
that time.
Good for him.
And but he's back full duty now.
So
So-
now it's slow.
Yeah.
But you can see where people make the argument that it's just to discourage people from getting it because it seems so overwhelming to start that process.
It does.
Yeah.
It does seem overwhelming. And honestly, I'm not totally against the 16-hour training
No,
because
no.
it has all the components that we
I'd
did
say that's
in
the
our
worst.
5.
Yeah, that's the least of the problems.
But it does. It could be streamlined a
Yeah.
little more.
Yeah.
But I'm all about having a physical component where you have to actually load fire
I think that, yeah.
and make safe a pistol.
Mhm.
I think that should be part of
Mhm.
any pistol permit training course.
Sure. Just the person should have that knowledge anyway.
Yes.
You shouldn't be leaving with your permit with no knowledge.
Correct.
You know. And
Yeah.
I guess I can't remember because I took hunter safety so long ago. I don't remember if that was ever.
It's typically a rifle or a shotgun.
Yeah, that's what I was going to
Mhm.
say. So, all right, we've got a lot more to talk about, but we got to take another short break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We have so much left to talk about. First, we received a great email from a viewer, and I just want to go through it quickly. I'm not going to go through the whole message, but the idea was she thinks she has some advice or input when it comes to what we've been talking about a lot this morning, which is the opioid crisis and the drug crisis, because sadly she has lost some few people in her
Right.
family. And she asked, is there a way to meet with you and talk with you about that directly? Oh, is
Absolutely,
it? Yeah.
absolutely. We have an open door policy.
Okay.
The thing is to reach out to Terry Moore.
Okay.
She's our administrative assistant.
Yeah.
She knows my schedule and when, like,
Better than you do.
well, yeah,
Yeah.
And if I'm in the office or if I'm at a meeting or
Sure.
if I'm presenting somewheres, and she'll figure out a time to get you in.
Okay. Great.
Mhm.
I wanted to also ask, I brought this up probably a month ago when it came across our desk, but has there been anything more about that Board of Elections scam? Because I want people to be very mindful of that.
It's interesting that you bring that up because about 2 years ago we joined the Monroe County Intelligence Center,
Mm-hmm.
and they sent out. It was maybe a week after we did our
Yeah.
press release. They sent out a notice statewide from the Intelligence Center that they were seeing this across the state also.
Okay.
So locally, I haven't had any more reports of it.
Okay.
But again, the Board of Elections doesn't come to your house to verify it.
No.
And we've had, since I've been in the 10 years I've been sheriff or with the sheriff's office, we've had 2 investigations we did for the Board of Elections, but that was deputies
right.
coming to make sure that you're at a residence,
Sure.
not folks from the Board of Elections.
Right. The Board of Elections is busy enough.
Oh,
They're not
my
going to be
gosh.
knocking on your door.
Get Vicky on here.
Yeah,
sometime.
I had her on the
Yeah.
program. Talking to her, trust me, I know that she's
Especially with
not.
all the early voting and all
And
the
now they
changes
changed it
they
again.
made.
Now mail-in early voting.
Yeah.
Back to like pandemic days in New York State. Yeah, so she's busy. She's not knocking on your door to see how dinner's
No.
coming.
And she's not sending anybody to knock on your door.
No, they don't have the staff for that,
No,
even
they
if they
don't.
wanted to. But they're not doing that. So we wanted to
No.
get that message across. Okay, let's talk about the sticker stores.
Yes.
I only had one by me, so like
Mm-hmm.
anecdotally, I know, but that's gone away. So has it been a major issue still?
They're still out there.
Yeah.
Depending on where you are and who owns them.
Okay.
There's, I still believe the only licensed store in the area is Ithaca
Okay.
in Binghamton. I
Oh,
think
okay.
there's a licensed store in each of those communities. There are no other licensed stores, regardless of what folks tell you.
Yes, yes.
And they continue to operate. A lot of them, when the Office of Cannabis Management did come in and put the stickers
Yes.
up, or the placards up,
Yeah.
stickers probably a better one. They were down within a week and
Yeah.
back to business
Yeah.
within a week because the OCM never came back.
Yeah. And they're not.
And-
They're so understaffed, and I'm never for growing bureaucracy ever.
Right.
But you can't expect a state as big as us with the city to have
Right.
what do they got, like 80 people or
Yeah,
something?
73. I was on a Zoom with the Office of Cannabis Management when they rolled the enforcement arm out, and it was 73 agents covering the entire state. We're under Buffalo. Buffalo is our
Okay.
closest
All right.
group.
So we're getting a
here.
lot of attention. Yeah.
Well, and who knows how many is in Buffalo.
Right.
But yeah, they've got bigger issues up there than.
Mm-hmm.
And I offered on this Zoom call. I said, "I'll FaceTime
Yeah.
from inside the store. I'll video whatever you need that I can help.
Yeah.
I'll be more than." And they said only our folks can enforce.
Yeah.
And I said, "Okay, thank you very much."
Yeah, and it was neat. I mean, I say neat to see, but I felt like I was watching, I don't know, Chicago PD or something. When it all
Yeah,
comes
yeah.
Because I know when you see law
There's a big
enforcement
production with it.
Yeah, when they start walking into a store, I'm like, well, they're not doing that for recreation.
No,
So I
they're-
said,
they're
well,
not purchasing.
So I sat where you were, and I just watched like a nosy neighbor.
Yep.
But yeah, a lot of that, and this I won't put words in your mouth. A lot of it seemed to be about the optics in the show.
Correct.
You know, the first thing they seemed to really focus on was getting those stickers up, and the fact that it was at noon and blocking Market Street might have played into it as
Gets
well.
a little attention that
Yeah,
way.
which
Yep.
is fine. I mean, I'm glad the places are closing down,
Absolutely.
but we need more enforcement. That's it.
We do.
And
And
think of
follow up.
and follow up.
Yes.
And think about the rollout before we go. You mentioned this, but I don't think there's a better example of how bad New York and like government can screw something up than this.
Well, it was a study of how not to roll out a new program.
It really is.
Yeah.
Again, going back to what we were talking with Battlefront, it just seems like knee jerk to virtue signal, say, hey,
Yes.
we care, we want
Well,
these
we
votes.
want to be first.
Yeah, we want to be first.
We wanna be
but there's
first.
other states they could have looked at and maybe had a better idea.
Yeah. Yeah. From everything I've heard, Massachusetts rolled it out well.
Yeah.
Obviously, Colorado's made all their mistakes. You could have learned.
Yeah, I could have learned.
But
People are going to be looking at us and say, this is what's not to do,
Yeah.
like you said. I mean,
Yeah,
what a
yeah.
mess. And to think of how much lost revenue, if that's their goal, whatever you
Right.
think about the policy, if that's their goal is the revenue, they couldn't have handled that worse.
well, yeah, there's been no revenue,
Right.
and all there's been is expenditure.
Yeah. Basically, we had speakeasies all around
Yeah.
making, and it seemed like any building that had been closed down for a while, boy, they popped up quick, didn't
Yes,
they?
they did.
It's
Yes, they did.
amazing. Yeah. But I will say with this close, I do find it really fascinating because we talked about this way back when they first were talking about legalizing it. Because they can smoke where cigarettes are allowed and cigars are allowed, boy, that's obnoxious.
It's noticeable.
It-
The change in
All
in
day, too.
atmosphere. Yeah, yeah.
Like, you think about how many lunches have been ruined in Centerway.
Right.
And I mean, the person's not doing anything technically illegal.
Right.
But boy, inconvenient.
Yeah.
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 I don't know why I ended on that story, but I'm glad. It just is very obnoxious. That's the word. Well, thanks for giving us so much time this morning.
No worries.
I know we're going to talk about this in a moment because we're doing a special show on the wine glass. But you excited
Yep.
for the wine glass?
I am. This will be my 11th wine glass
Wow.
that I've
Yeah.
helped manage. So it gets better every year.
Yeah, it sure does. Well, thanks so much, and join us 7 o'clock tomorrow morning for Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. Have a great day.